The invitation arrived in an expensive cream envelope, gold embossed with a picture of a luxury yacht cutting through crystal blue waters. Inside, elegant script announced, "The Parker Family Annual Summer Cruise, a celebration of success." I traced my fingers over the raised lettering, remembering last year's humiliation when my brother Marcus had accidentally forgotten to send my invitation. This year they couldn't ignore me. I'd made sure of that. My name is Sarah Parker and I was about to give my family the surprise of their lives. The phone rang just as I finished reviewing the quarterly reports for my company. "Sarah," my mother's voice dripped with practiced concern. "We need to talk about the cruise." I sat back in my leather chair, gazing out the window of my penthouse office at the marina below. From here I could see my latest acquisition, the 300-foot luxury yacht my family thought they'd rented for their annual showing of wealth and status. "What about it, Mom?" She sighed heavily. "Well, darling, your brother thinks, and I agree, that perhaps this year's cruise should be selective." Selective. I watched a team of workers putting the finishing touches on the yacht's exterior, making sure every inch sparkled. They had no idea they were actually working for the owner. "You know how these things are," she continued. "Important business contacts will be there. Your father's new partners, Marcus's investor friends. We need to maintain a certain image." I thought about the image they'd maintained for years, the successful parents with their golden son and disappointing daughter. The daughter who'd walked away from the family investment firm to waste time on some internet thing. That internet thing was now worth billions. And I don't fit that image. I kept my voice neutral, watching another yacht, one of my smaller ones, sail past in the harbor. "Sarah, please don't make this difficult. You know your situation is, well, it's embarrassing. Everyone keeps asking what you do and that little online business of yours. It's just not what we mean by success." I smiled, thinking of the acquisition papers sitting on my desk. My little online business had just bought out our largest competitor for $4.2 billion. "I understand, Mom." "You do." She sounded relieved. "I'm so glad. Marcus was worried you'd make a scene." Marcus. My perfect older brother who'd never worked a day in his life outside our father's firm. Who'd been handed everything on a silver platter while I built my empire from scratch. "No scene," I promised. "But I think I'll come to the marina anyway. To see you off." "Oh, Sarah, that's not necessary, Dash." "I insist," I cut her off smoothly. Family is family after all. After hanging up, I called my assistant. "Maria, is everything ready for tomorrow?" "Yes, Miss Parker. The captain and crew have their instructions. Though." She hesitated. "Are you sure you want to do it this way?" I thought about all the family gatherings where I'd been seated at the kids' table well into my 30s. The Christmas parties where Marcus's minor achievements were celebrated while my major successes were ignored. The constant stream of concerned relatives offering to help me find a real job. "Absolutely sure," I replied. The next morning I arrived at the marina early, watching from my car as my family's procession of luxury vehicles pulled up. Marcus's new Ferrari. Dad's Bentley. Mom's custom Range Rover. All leased, though they pretended to own them. I stepped out into the bright summer sun, deliberately dressed in simple linen pants and a white blouse, a stark contrast to their designer cruise wear. "Sarah," Marcus called out, his voice carrying that familiar note of condescension. "Came to see what success looks like?" He gestured to the yacht behind him, its pristine white hull gleaming in the morning light. The Aurora was indeed magnificent, 300 feet of pure luxury, with 6 decks, a helipad and every amenity imaginable. I'd spent quite a bit having it customized over the winter. "Something like that," I smiled. "Oh, darling," my mother air kissed my cheek. "You really didn't have to come. I know seeing all this must be difficult for you." I watched as my crew efficiently loaded luggage and supplies. "Not at all, Mom. I'm just here to make sure everything's perfect." "Perfect for what?" My father joined us, adjusting his Rolex. "You're not still thinking you can join us?" Marcus laughed, drawing the attention of his friends who were arriving, all young executives from Dad's firm, dressed in their finest nautical wear. "This cruise is for successful people only," he smirked. "No failures allowed." I noticed several of his friends hiding smirks behind their hands. They'd all heard stories about the Parker family failure, The daughter who'd turned down a cushy job at daddy's firm to start some mysterious tech company. Now, my mother patted Marcus's arm. I'm sure Sarah understands. This is a networking opportunity. We have standards to maintain. More guests arrived, business partners, potential investors, social climbers eager to be seen with the right people. I recognized most of them from various business magazines and board meetings, though they'd never recognized me. I preferred to keep my public profile low. Miss Parker. A voice called from the yacht. We're ready to begin boarding. My father frowned. That's odd. The captain should be addressing me. I arranged this rental. Did you? I raised an eyebrow. Are you sure about that? Before he could respond, the captain himself appeared at the gangway. His crisp white uniform gleamed in the sun as he descended to the dock. Marcus stepped forward, hand outstretched. Captain, I'm Marcus Parker. We spoke on the phone about Dash. But the captain walked right past him, coming to stand directly in front of me. He snapped to attention, offering a sharp salute. Welcome aboard your yacht, Miss Parker. Everything has been prepared according to your specifications. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the seagulls seemed to pause their crying. Your yacht. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. I smiled, pulling out my phone and pulling up a photo of me signing the purchase papers for the Aurora 6 months ago. Did you really think you'd manage to rent one of the most exclusive yachts in the world for your little cruise? I asked sweetly. The Aurora's been rather selective about its clients since I bought it. Along with the rest of the marina. Marcus's face had gone from tan to pale in record time. That's not possible. This yacht costs $180 million. I finished for him. Give or take a few million for customization. Would you like to see the paperwork? But this was just the beginning. My family had no idea that their perfectly planned cruise was about to become something very different indeed. The silence on the dock was broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the yacht's hull. My father was the first to recover, his face flushing with a mixture of anger and calculation. Now, Sarah, he stepped forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Let's discuss this like family. If you've managed to achieve this level of success, we should talk about integrating your company into Parker Investments. I smiled, remembering how he'd dismissed my business plan 5 years ago. You mean the company you called a foolish pipe dream? The one you said would never succeed without the Parker name behind it. The past is the past, he waved his hand dismissively. We're talking about the future. The family legacy. Legacy? I laughed softly. Let me tell you about legacy. I turned to address the gathered crowd of guests, many of whom were now whispering among themselves. 6 years ago I pitched my tech startup to Parker Investments. My father and brother here spent 20 minutes explaining why it would fail, then offered me a job as Marcus's assistant instead. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his designer boat shoes suddenly fascinating. What they didn't know was that I'd already secured series of funding. By the time they were finishing their condescending lecture, I'd raised $50 million in venture capital. My mother's perfectly maintained smile cracked slightly. But you work from that tiny office downtown. That tiny office is the entire top floor of the Parker building, I corrected. Which, incidentally, I bought last year. You might have noticed the rent increase. My father's face went pale. The Parker building had been his pride and joy until the mysterious new owner had tripled the rent, forcing him to move his firm to a less prestigious location. You, he whispered. That was you. Along with most of the commercial real estate in the business district. I nodded. I do enjoy a good investment. Marcus stepped forward, his confidence somehow restored. Well, clearly we underestimated you. But now that we know we can work together. Think of the possibilities. Oh, I have been, I smiled, nodding to my captain. He produced a thick folder and handed it to my father. What's this? Dad flipped it open, then froze. Ownership transfer papers, I explained. Parker Investments hasn't been doing well lately, has it? All those risky investments Marcus made, the clients quietly pulling out their money, the SEC investigation you've been trying to keep quiet. My brother's restored confidence evaporated. How do you know about that? I know everything, I said simply. Including the fact that you need a major cash injection by the end of the month to avoid bankruptcy. Lucky for you, I'm willing to buy the company. at a very generous 30 cents on the dollar. The folder slipped from my father's hands, scattering papers across the dock. Mom rushed to gather them, her diamonds catching the morning sun. But that would mean... She trailed off. That I'd own everything, I finished. The firm, the building, the Parker name in finance. Everything you built, everything you valued more than me. One of Marcus's friends, a junior executive at the firm, cleared his throat. I should probably mention. I already work for Sarah. Most of us do actually. She's been buying up investment firms across the city. More guests began to nod, stepping away from my family and moving closer to me. The power shift was palpable. Now, I turned back to my family, about this cruise. I think it's time we discussed the real passenger list. I gestured to Maria, my assistant, who began distributing new itineraries to the guests. You'll notice some changes, I continued. The cruise will now be hosting a tech conference. 20 of the most innovative startups in the country will be pitching their ideas. Real entrepreneurs, not trust fund babies playing at business. Marcus's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You can't do this. We invited these people. Actually, one of his supposed friends spoke up. We're here because Miss Parker invited us. Your father's firm. Well, let's just say we've been looking for better opportunities. My mother sank onto a nearby bench, her perfect posture finally failing her. All this time, you let us think. That I was a failure? I raised an eyebrow. Yes, I did. I wanted to see how far you'd go, how much you'd enjoy pushing me aside. Consider it a social experiment. An experiment? My father's voice cracked. Yes. And you failed spectacularly. I turned to the captain. Please begin boarding the real guests. The Parker family will be taking the tender back to shore. The tender. Marcus looked confused. The small boat, I explained slowly as if to a child. The big one's too expensive for failures. As my actual guests began boarding CEOs, tech innovators, genuine success stories, I held back my family with one final gesture. Before you go, I have something for each of you. I handed them each an envelope. Inside was a single photo, them standing on the dock, surrounded by luxury they didn't own, wearing expressions of shock as they realized their daughter owned it all. Something to remember this moment by, I smiled. Oh, and Dad? About Parker Investments. You have 24 hours to accept my offer before I call the SEC. Their investigation into Marcus's creative accounting should be interesting. You do that to your own family? My mother gasped. Family. I looked at them each in turn. Was it family when you excluded me from every event? When you mocked my dreams? When you told everyone who would listen that I was a disappointment? Silence. The funny thing is, I continued, my little internet thing just hit a market cap of $12 billion. That's about 12 times what Parker Investments was worth. Before Marcus started embezzling, of course. My brother made a choking sound. The yacht is about to depart. I gestured to the tender. Your ride is waiting. Unless you'd rather swim. As they trudged toward the small boat, my mother turned back one last time. Sir, we're sorry. We didn't know. That's the problem, Mom. You never bothered to find out. I watched them motor back to shore, 3 small figures in expensive clothes, their designer luggage piled around them in the tiny boat. Then I turned and walked up the gangway of my yacht, my $180 million statement of success. Maria met me at the top. Everything's ready, Miss Parker. Though, was the tender necessary? They could have taken a cab. I smiled, watching the small boat bounce through the yacht's wake. Consider it a lesson in humility. Something they never taught me. The next week, every major business publication ran the story. Tech billionaire Sarah Parker acquires family firm. A tale of redemption and return. The photos were spectacular. Me at the helm of the Aurora. The spectacular sunset cruise. The multimillion-dollar deals closed on board. My family's humiliation was complete when the SEC investigation went public. Marcus faced criminal charges. My father's reputation was in tatters. The Parker name in finance was destroyed. But I gave them one last gift. When they arrived at their homes after that fateful day at the marina, they each found a small package waiting. Inside was a toy boat, a perfect miniature of the tender they'd been forced to take back to shore. Attached was a note. Success isn't about the size of your boat. It's about the size of your vision. Thanks for teaching me that lesson by example of what not to do. 1 year later, I received an invitation to another family gathering. This time it was being held at a modest restaurant instead of a luxury yacht. I decided to attend wearing the same simple outfit from that day at the marina. My family looked different now. Humbled. Marcus had served 6 months under house arrest. Dad had retired in disgrace. Mom had downsized to a condo. Sarah. Marcus approached me, his designer clothes replaced by off-the-rack basics. I'm sorry. I looked at my brother, the golden child who'd spent years making me feel small, who'd laughed at my dreams and mocked my ambitions. Sorry you underestimated me, I asked, or sorry you lost everything because of it? He had no answer. I stood up, addressing the entire family. Success isn't about boats or buildings or family names. It's about vision, hard work, and believing in yourself even when no one else will. I paused. Remember that next time you're tempted to call someone a failure. As I left the restaurant, my phone buzzed with breaking news. Parker Tech announces new innovation center. The photo showed my newly announced project, a startup incubator specifically for entrepreneurs who'd been told they would never succeed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about changing the entire game. And sometimes the biggest statement isn't made by a luxury yacht. It's made by a small tender boat, carrying humbled passengers back to shore. As for that little internet thing they loved to mock, it just acquired its 20th company. But who's counting? Well, maybe Marcus is. From his new job in the mailroom of my tech company. Entry level only, of course. No failures allowed.